Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Three-Headed Hydra Podcast. Today I have with me James, Joshua, my name is Sal, and today we're going to talk about how to reason on social media. James, what's your take on this?
Okay, so what we thought we'd do today for a bit of a change is to give each other a minute to lay out some opinions, a minute each, clean, without any interruptions, questions, or anything like that, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to start my minute. How to reason on social media. Right, so the first thing to say is that in the last month or so, my social media feed has been an absolute cesspit. And it's unfortunate because I think most of the people that memes and one-line comments have good intentions, but good intentions are not enough because these topics are complex, right? And the topics that we've seen in the last month have also been hijacked by the extremes on the political scale. So good intentions is not enough. That's one thing I would say. How to reason, which is the topic today. Well, Den's taught me a lot about self-control and restraint on social media, and because my first reaction is that's a stupid thing to say, I'm going to go after you and I'm going to try and make you look silly, and that's not useful for anyone, for the person or for me in the end, because I get exhausted. So I think the thing to do is to aim at peace rather than trying to beat somebody. It's not the easiest thing, but I think it's the most useful. That's a minute.
Yeah.
Very nice. Joshua, what do you think about it?
What do I think about how to reason on social media? I mean, in preparation, I did Google who learns from a debate. Does anyone change their mind in a debate? And it was more threads of conversation about that question rather than one definitive answer. But I think the people reading do learn. But like James said, you've got to not be putting each other down. There's a fine line where you just turn people off. And the question is, I think you've got to ask yourself when you're having these debates on Facebook, not that I ever get involved in them, but are you winning any new people over, or are you just reinforcing your crowd already? And, is that your objective? 52 seconds.
Well, yeah, how to reason on social media. I mean, my take on this is don't do it. Don't think you can convince anybody else, and don't take it personal. So these are the three don'ts I think apply here, because if you want to reason on social media, it means you're committing an act of engaging with other people. You think you can engage with other people. But as Ricky Gervais famously said, arguing with morons on Twitter is like correcting graffiti on a public toilet wall that you will never want to use again. So something more or less like that.
Okay, yeah.
So do you really want to enter a place like that to have a civil conversation with people you don't even know? You don't know who's on the other end. So you don't know if you're actually talking with a person or with a Russian bot, or you have no idea what you're actually up against. And don't think you can convince anybody else, as Dan just pointed out. Do you really want to convince somebody else, or do you really think you can actually change somebody else's mind, especially in a format like that, limited format that social media gives you? And last but not least, don't take it personal when you are actually engaging on social media, because again, you don't even know who's on the other side. If it's like a teenager who is just pissed off because his mom grounded him at home or something like that, you don't know who the other person really is in most cases. So that's what I would say. Just don't even do it.
Sal, I do partly agree. Because of my experience in public toilets, I can tell you that you can waste a lot of time correcting the grammar on the graffiti there.
That was you.
I'd just like to say a shout out to all my Russian friends and colleagues. Здравствуйте, спасибо большое всем.
Я говорю по-русски не очень хорошо.
Yeah, don't listen to anything that Sal said about bots. It's all good. No, seriously though. So I agree. With strangers, it's completely fruitless. But everyone on my Facebook feed.
That's a good distinction with strangers.
Yeah, but everyone on my Facebook feed are people that I know, right? So I do actually care to varying degrees about whether they're absolute morons or not. I mean, whether they're whether they're taken in by stupidity, and whether their compassion is actually just ignorance with a funny mask on. So yeah, I do care about people on social media. Otherwise, I wouldn't have befriended them. But yeah, are you going to convince anyone? Okay, what about this idea? Jordan Peterson says, if you have something to say, then silence is a lie. So when you don't see anything in contrary to an opinion, okay, not us perhaps, but a lot of people would take that as, well, nobody said anything against it or given any counterpoints. It must just be the truth. So, but even being silent, is that not contributing to a general impression? And you can't even see how many people are reading over these things, right? It might be hundreds. Hundreds might tell hundreds. That turns into thousands. I mean, isn't it our responsibility to at least put another point if we think that the facts are being completely distorted?
So what is your purpose when you actually engage on social media? Let's say you publish an article about Earth Day or something like that. Okay. Now you see that your brother, I don't even know if you have a brother or not, but let's say your brother comments on that post saying, it's all bullshit, Earth is flat. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah,
are you gonna publicly now engage in this whole thing? First of all, I personally would be pissed off that he drags this in public because I know him personally. So I would rather have him engage in this situation privately with me, but I would probably still first reply privately because A, it's so outrageously stupid that it's self-explanatory, and second, it's something I would, if I would want to really have a serious conversation about it with him, I would talk with him in person.
Okay.
Because that's the only time I can look in his eyes and actually start to see, when I start giving him arguments, does he actually really care about them? Does he actually listen really, or is he just fixed on his own opinion? And when you do this online, you don't have this instant feedback. You don't see, you don't have this kind of social, real-time check with the person you're talking with.
How about, I do agree with you, because you have to have a conversation with people, and once you have a face-to-face, or at least a direct message conversation, that's the best way to de-escalate tension usually, because it's like
you have more indicators in person, don't you? It's not just text, it's tone of voice and it's body language, which is important.
But even if it's just the text messaging, but one-on-one, I think it's de-escalated a lot more, because you lose the theatre of the baying crowd around you. It's like being in the middle of the Colosseum, right? You're completely conscious that a few hundred people might read what you're saying, and that makes you sometimes, well, it makes me more aggressive anyway. But I would say I don't think silence is the answer. I'm really not convinced. So maybe something like, here, brother, I love you dearly, but I have to take issue with you. I'm going to DM you, and then talk about it one-on-one. And any of these issues are not going to be solved by a meme. Any issue that's worth talking about is a complex issue, right?
Well, a red-faced angry emoji.
That will do. That's a good start.
Right.
Sorry, continue.
But that's what I mean. Just already the fact that you have this kind of gladiator mentality, and you're in a Colosseum of public opinion, and so everybody's watching you. Doesn't it kind of taint the objective of really coming to to finding consent with the other person, to find common ground, let's say, right, or a solution, a real solution, or just to have an honest debate when you already have these kind of constraints? Because in a way, they're constraints, because you're being observed, that people are judging, but you kind of also get a thrill and a kick out of it. And so it automatically turns into a spectacle in a way. And so you choose your words either to in an inflammatory way to actually create tension, or just to deliver punchlines to make you look good. But are you really engaging? Because the topic is how to reason on social media.
Yeah.
Can you even? So we're actually thinking now. Can you even reason on social media with all these constraints?
Yes, but you have to use so many what we call hedging devices in your written language that you have to make it clear always that you're there with a white flag, right? You're not here to bash. You're actually ready to listen to the other person's opinion and change your opinion if necessary. But you can't do that through body language if it's a written message. You have to actually use your words very, very carefully, very, very carefully. So I think it actually improves written communication. Because I was listening to this podcast about the future of work, and he was talking about the increase in written communication when we're working online. And this guy said, he was the founder of WordPress, and he said what we do at WordPress is use a rule of API, assume positive intent, because anything that you write, I can assume the worst, right? Oh, this person's attacking me. Oh, is that sarcastic? Oh, is that a double meaning? It's impossible to avoid a negative interpretation if that's what you're looking for. So if you assume positive intent, that's one thing. And then it's also every individual's responsibility to understand how we use language and make it as peaceful as possible. But I still think you can have a good faith discussion in writing.
I agree, James. I think you can. I think it is doable. I think I would pipe up more probably if I could articulate things as you do. But I know when I get caught, it's a commitment. When the fire jumping into the flames, you've got to dedicate some time there if you're going to. And also, I just anticipate what the replies would be. And a lot of the time I can't answer them. And I think, am I going to look into these things or am I just disagreeing? And that's another reason why I might not bother. And the other effective way to do it as well is, which I was talking about the other day, was the still manning the other person's argument. Because what that does then is says, look, I can see why you think like this, you know, and genuinely as well. Because when you still man an argument, you're not just displaying the argument in a lesser way than it should be shown. You're really, you know, they say still manning it, so you're making it the best possible scenario it could be, and then saying why you might think opposite, and you're showing each other respect that way. Yeah,
that's it, respect. But you have to show that through your words, right? And I don't think that's a bad thing, man, to actually ask people to get better at writing, right? Because writing, the skill of writing gets brushed under the rug a little bit sometimes, you know, it gets left as punishment and left as extra homework, whereas really it's an absolutely vital skill. But mate, I have to thank you, Den, because my attitude's changed definitely in the last year, where you said, okay, well, nobody's going to change their mind in the moment. Number one, if I change my mind, it will be in a couple of months, and I'll pretend that was my decision, nothing to do with you. And number two, what's your goal here? And I do leave a lot more of these things than, like, just take one example. The other day, there was this virtue signaling festival of copy and paste a LinkedIn post that, oh, by the way, guys, I've deleted all of my pictures from my childhood where I have pictures of me that might be offensive. For example, when I was 5, I dressed up as Pocahontas, and that's what's called red face. I was going, you are a virtue signaling little weasel. I thought, no, actually, that's not going to convince them. I'm just going to get annoyed for about 2 days, be punching away at the keyboard. Let's just let this one go and move on with the day. So it has had an effect.
Well, look, if you're talking about reasoning with people on social media, I agree with the both of you. It can work, but I'd say more often than not, in most cases, it does not. And this has nothing to do with your willingness to have a civil debate or with Joshua's willingness to have a civil debate. But the problem is we all have to agree to use the same set of rules when we do communicate. And that's impossible because, A, you don't know if you are arguing with somebody on the other side who literally is 8 years old. Or maybe is 60 years old, and it's one of those people who use caps lock, and that's the normal way to write for them. And so it looks like they're all writing upper case letters.
Wait a second, because this is the second time you've used that point, but I just need to understand. So the people on your social media are strangers to you?
Well, then we have to define what we're talking about. If we're talking about social media and we have the whole world on the other side and you don't know who you're talking to, which happens on Twitter, Instagram, or if your Facebook feed is open, or if you're talking about just a very limited group of people, which are your friends, family, whatever, because then the whole conversation changes, because then you actually know who you're talking to. Yeah. I'm assuming you don't know who you're talking to in most cases.
Okay. I'm assuming that
on
I do.
social media.
I'm assuming that I do.
Okay.
I'm not going to have an argument with a guy in the supermarket queue who says something which I disagree with, and then I'm going to try and change his mind in 2 minutes while we pay for our bread. No.
Well, that's exactly what happens on social media in most cases.
Okay, we can let that one go because I don't think there's anything to talk about there. But what about friends and family then? How would you treat that situation?
Private messages, always. Yeah.
It goes down in the DMs.
Well, it depends. Look, I mean, I don't have racist friends to begin with, for example. Okay, so there's very little chance that somebody's gonna come out one day with some really racist, strange tweet that I have to strongly react to in public. I would, if that would be the case.
Ah, okay.
But
so where's the line then?
The line would be extremes. But extremes in the sense, if you're in a pub with friends and you all get a bit merry, there's going to be a lot of really stupid things said throughout the whole night, right? I mean, that's what usually happens in my experience. And some of those things will be offensive to you or maybe to other people. But you know that in that context, they are to be taken with a grain of salt, because you know the people, you know they can't be reduced to those comments in that moment, and so on. And so I do the same thing on social media, because sometimes maybe some family member retweets or reshares it on Facebook. Some really strange, wacky conspiracy theory about COVID-19, and I'm like, oh, okay. Sometimes what I see is hoaxes, like those chain WhatsApp messages.
Yeah.
And then I usually direct message those people instantly and say, look, here's a hoax. Usually I find also an article that actually proves that it's a hoax. Send them the link and be like, be careful next time you receive a link like that. Don't just share stuff. And then they may or may not take it down themselves.
That's fair enough.
So that's what I do.
Good one.
Good
way to deal with it. I saw during the carnage, like you say, of the last month. I mean, we could tie in COVID-19 with I suppose Black Lives Matter was the next sort of onslaught of Facebook bickering, wasn't there? And I saw someone make a really good point that I just wholeheartedly agree with, and that was about blocking and deleting people, which most of the time is not the answer. Blocking and deleting people, because like you say, James, you need to be able to. The better thing to do would be to point out where they're wrong in a compassionate way, I suppose.
And it's strange if it's a friend, you don't just block them on social media.
But I saw a lot of people saying I'm blocking, deleting anyone who doesn't do this, doesn't do that, and it's just really not the way to go. You've got to kind of beat them with logic. That's the word, but you need to, enlighten them, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the 21st century version of a Stalinist show trial. If you don't dance, monkey, dance, then you better watch out. You better say what I say, or you better watch out. This is where it's getting really poisonous in the last month, right? Not just I disagree with what you have said. I disagree with what you haven't said or what you haven't reposted. If you even ask this question, I'm deleting you. It's not that I have an answer. I'm just deleting you. So this is how you create an echo chamber, which is the worst thing that you can have for your intellectual health, right?
Yeah, definitely. Just in the last minute, I heard a rapper, J. Cole, did a song yesterday, and he was addressing another rapper, who'd called him out for not talking about the Black Lives Matter and not tweeting anything. And it's good. I recommend it. He kind of breaks down, pretty much echoes what we're saying. That's the way I interpreted it. And he said about planting ideas like seeds, rather than, you don't change minds overnight. You have to kind of drip the other side in, because otherwise you lose that connection with people. If you argue, people don't want to talk to you anymore. If you genuinely want to change your mind, you have to be careful and ease it in and know when to pull back rather than creating this conflict? Because I don't know, I guess something happens psychologically where you just cut off and you think, I'm not going to talk to that person about that anymore. And then what good is that if you really want to win someone?
Ease it in, brother. As they say here in Rome, ease it in. Non c'è nava, non c'è nava. Invece c'è nava lento.
Interpret that how you will.
Ease it in, brother.
But just to close my side of the argument, I mostly see these things on social media. I don't see them in real life, or very rarely. So I don't have people who ever come to me and are like, "Okay, you said that. I don't want to talk to you." You know, it doesn't happen. So that's not a reason. Another reason for actually not giving too much attention or not taking social media too serious and not using it for real conversations. It's just the echo chambers are also created mostly by social media. I don't think that I think there's a direct correlation to trying to have these conversations online with limited amounts of characters or the lack of visual cues, you know. Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, don't do it.
Well, Uncle Sal's advice has been sound so far.
He's never been wrong.
He's never been wrong.
Sal's never been wrong.
That's not true.
I think that's a good way to wrap it up, sir.
All right.
Maybe we can play the pipes of peace on the outro.
Give me a growl.
A peaceful one.
A peaceful growl. Meow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching or listening to the Three-Headed Hydra Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Follow us on YouTube or now also on Apple Podcasts if you're listening to this. And yeah, hope to see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Why are we making these podcasts? Because 3 heads are better than 1. We'll combine our experiences and research on engaging topics to learn a bit more each time, enjoy the chat, and improve our own communication skills in the process. Innovation comes from the ability to correlate information between different realms of knowledge, and we all have very different realms of knowledge between the 3 of us.
Why the Hydra, you ask? In archetypal mythology, dragons guard piles of gold. Overcoming fears can bring great rewards. What you most need is often where you least want to look, and we won't shy away from the fire to challenge each other and reach that goal.
What's in it for you, listener? Learn, laugh, and love. Get involved and join us on this adventure.